because gyms had such a strong brand and cut through, a lot of people use gyms in that same way to, let their fingers do the walking, contact gyms and just see what comes next.
Did you have to do the training back then, or did you still have to do the generic training then, or were you able to go straight into it because of your business?
Yeah, I think there might have been a little bit of training around, might have just been half a day or a day. It was on the basics, and I suspect at the time they were still establishing what all that was about. And you got to remember back then that Jim's Mowing was a predominant business. So when we had our franchisor meetings, it was like, 6 million mowing franchisors, and there was a few of us. And I still remember them talking about how to market to clients and, what should we do with Mrs. Jones. And I sat there, a bunch of them thought it was a really good idea to have Jim's stubby holders, and I actually said to them, I go, this is what you're going to give Mrs. Jones, a free stubby holder with Jim's face on it, who doesn't even drink.
That's true.
Yeah, you're going to go with that. That set a cat amongst the pigeons, but that was my sort of first foray into meetings and the like.
Well, you've been around for many years, so yes, back in the day, obviously when the new division started coming in, Jim's Mowing obviously was the foundational brand, and it would have been a bit hard with back in the day, especially with the just getting used to it while we're doing all these other things as well. But obviously now all the other divisions are more than Jim's Mowing. So Jim's Mowing is less than 50% of the business. It's Jim's Cleaning Group and Jim's Fencing and Dog Wash, what have you. So it's more of a Jim's Group now as opposed to what it was then.
Yeah.
Now I was going to say then, with your business in the early days, how was it back in the early days, back 20 years ago? Was Jim's online around, or we didn't have that yet, or how was that?
No, I don't recall it being online. I still remember the early website.
Yes.
And it was as clunky as it was all get out. I think predominantly that yellow pages were the driving force.
Yep.
So Jim's had a really good presence. I actually do remember when yellow pages went online, Jim's had a presence there. It was an interesting thing that we used to get a lot of calls. Back in the day, yellow pages used to have this saying, let your fingers do the walking. Because gyms had such a strong brand and cut through, a lot of people use gyms in that same way to, let their fingers do the walk and contact gyms and just see what comes next. And so we had market presence, but I still think I know I was, but a lot of us were still discovering, okay, so we're known, what do we do with it now? How do we compete in the marketplace? I think there was a sense of, as soon as you stick gym stickers on the car, that people are going to be begging you to take money. What I come to realise is that we had much higher responsibility and people weren't necessarily willing to give us money for that. We had to compete. And the reason we had to compete is you still had your local papers, which was, a lot of leads would come through that as well. And so you had people who were very cost driven. For instance, so we take carpet cleaning. So back then, people were doing like 5 rooms for $50. I still remember it was 2001, 5 rooms for $50, which had sort of been around since the early 70s. And then we went through a bit of a dip in the economy, and then it was like 5 rooms 40 for 41, and then 5 rooms for 39. And so just having Jim's branding didn't necessarily get you the job, but it actually took me a little bit of time to say, okay, it is a brand. This is what we're going to promise you when we do the job. So immediately, you're either going to get people's focus off the bargain basement and educate them, or, rightly so, you would just automatically get rid of those who were just buying at the cheapest level. I think the group, with their branding, has come to understand that much better over time. Obviously, I've seen a lot of you on TikTok. Jim does some great podcasts. He's often on 3AW. When he's on 3AW with Tom's quite entertained by Jim. So I text Jim, I go, hey, that was a really good... And I'll still text him when I find him online. His ability to enunciate what he's thinking and why has only got better